Hey guys, welcome back to the BuzWeaver channel. And in today's top stories, we started off with the Daily Mail. Now, in the war on American oil, Joe, Republicans urge Biden to give the U.S. energy independence after he banned Russian imports because he would longer subsidize Putin's war and insisted he pumped more oil than Trump in his first year. That was an interesting way to phrase that. So Republican lawmakers are demanding on Tuesday that President Joe Biden restore American energy independence after he announced a ban on Russian oil and gas imports after its attack on Ukraine. Biden announced on Tuesday the United States would target the main artery of Russia's economy with a ban on energy imports from Moscow, while acknowledging the financial squeeze it would put on Americans already paying record high prices at the pump. So at least Joe had the I don't know. I think the UK has given Joe Biden a little bit of credit there when it comes to him actually noticing it, because he's not particularly concerned, because we can see from CNBC, Keystone Pipeline officially canceled after Biden revokes key permit. Well, of course he's going to do that. A $9 billion oil pipeline that became a symbol of the rising political clout of climate change advocates and a flashpoint in U.S.-Canada relations was officially canceled on Wednesday. Well, not only that, it also canceled lots of jobs, because remember from Molly Ball's article, the various different unions who came together to help out Joe Biden, only to find that they would lose their job once he was elected. Biden halts oil, gas leases aimed legal fight on climate costs. That's right. The Biden administration is delaying decisions on new oil and gas drilling on federal land and other energy-related actions after a federal court blocked the way officials were calculating the real-world cost of climate change. Because, see, it's all about the climate change. And I'm going to make a very controversial statement here, so be prepared. I have a feeling, I have to word this very carefully, I have a feeling that the climate militants, individuals like Greta Thunberg, and maybe the establishment are somewhat encouraged by what has happened with Russia and Ukraine. Now, that's as politely as I can put it. I'm sure you guys can infer what I would rather say when it comes to what's going on, because these individuals seem to have very little concern when it comes to what people are actually having to experience in the real world versus having their particular agenda and narrative accomplished, even if that means the loss of life. Now, I think you guys can further infer what I was trying to relate to. Biden administration freezes new oil and gas drilling lease after court rules against key climate tool, as you guys just heard a moment ago. And then from CNBC, Russia warns of $300 oil, threatens to cut off European gas if West bans energy imports. Well, we've already banned it, so there you have it. With the pipelines that runs there in from Russia into Germany, they could potentially shut that off. That would be the Nord Stream 1, and then, of course, they had the production of Nord Stream 2. So Russia definitely knows and has thought about what they're doing and understands how to respond to certain things that are being done, because these are a matter of chess pieces being moved. And, of course, they're trying to put a stranglehold on Putin, who had 8 years to plan all of this, and, of course, his assistance from China. And then, of course, here from the Washington Post, U.S. officials make rare trip to Venezuela, discuss resuming oil imports to help replace Russian oil. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The United States administration, or I should say the Joe Biden administration here in the United States, is willing to cooperate with a nation that harms its own people than with a nation that is harming its neighbors. So there you have it, an ethical conundrum, right? A group of senior U.S. officials flew to Venezuela on Saturday for a meeting with President Nicolas Maduro's government to discuss the possibility of easing sanctions on Venezuelan oil exports as the Biden administration weighs a ban on imports of Russian oil and gas, according to two people familiar with the situation. I think the whole world is familiar with the current situation, but of course they wanted to get ahead of this, so they were already doing this on Saturday before the bans and things happened. But Maduro, I have a gaming guildmate that lives down in Venezuela, and he lost his power supply. His power supply went bad down there, and he could not order another one. He couldn't just go on Amazon like we can here in the United States and order a new power supply, nor could he go to the local computer store because, of course, there's not a lot of commerce and economy going on there in Venezuela. So he had to wait until a family member who was able to fly down to Venezuela even with the restrictions and so forth, because I think they were still able to do business and things like that. So he had to rely on a relative to fly him a power supply from the United States to be able to repair his computer. From the New York Post, Saudis and then the United Arab Emirates leaders ignore Biden when he calls to talk gas prices. That's right, he's being ignored now. You see, this is how the game works. When you go after your political enemies, and then when they have the leveraging, they're going to come back on you. The leaders of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates would not come to the phone when President Biden tried to call them to discuss boosting oil exports to offset price hikes linked to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, according to a report. Well, of course not. Why? Because all of our adversaries are taking advantage of this situation. Not only that, they saw the complete disaster that happened in Afghanistan, the deadly botching, incompetence of this administration, which of course emboldened both Russia and China as they witnessed that Biden's completely incapable of handling something that already had a plan laid out for him. Needless to say, trying to even start into a war. Now, excuse me, guys. Trump just achieved what every president since Nixon had promised, energy independence. Now, this is a very rare article. This was a very difficult one to find as I was looking through all the different articles and so forth that was going on during the Trump administration, because here we see Energy Secretary last week, the U.S. exported more oil than we imported for the first time in 70 plus years. And it happened not because of decades of federal energy policies, but despite them. So again, as we have said 100 times here on the BuzWeaver channel, make sure you like and subscribe too to show your support here in 2020 of the algorithm. Right? We're going to go after the algorithm. Right, exactly. It took Joe Biden to hold back the establishment for the United States to actually achieve things, for the United States to actually benefit. But of course, the media was not going to give any sort of credit to President Trump, because you see here, did the U.S. become the world's top oil producer under President Trump? Really? They say, really? Is that what everybody wants to do? They want to give President Biden or President Trump the credit. We'll get into a better graph here in a minute, but I just wanted to show you how the media responded to all of that. So here I went and found out or looked up from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the United States continued to lead global petroleum and natural gas production in 2020. And as you can see, we started getting a little bit of a lead in 2014 all the way up to 2020. But during the Trump administration, of course, we had huge, very massive leads. And we were doing incredibly well in 2020. This was leading up during Trump's last year. As you can see here, he was doing incredibly well. But as I just showed you in that Forbes magazine article, of course, they don't want to give President Trump any sort of credit. You guys may remember 2 years ago when we talked about this, and I found this heat map from Gizmodo showing the C virus had changed global air pollution. Because you see, for the climate change militants and Greta Thunberg to achieve their goals, they basically have to shut down the entire world, which is what the pandemic did. And as you can see here on the heat map, it had a very interesting and extraordinary effect. As you can see here, what the pollution was prior to the pandemic shutdown and lockdown, and what it was prior to it. And you can see like little comparisons here. You know, January 20th, 2020, just as the pandemic is starting to starting to spread around the world. And then in March, when the lockdowns happened, you can see the difference here in the heat map. And this is Los Angeles and San Diego. A pretty significant difference. And of course, they were all paying attention to this. The climate change militants and Greta Thunberg, I hope they were paying attention to this. I don't know, but it's definitely significant. But again, I say, and I stress, and not trying to dismiss the tragedy that's going on in Russia and Ukraine, I would have to say that these climate militants and Greta Thunbergs are probably somewhat enthusiastic about what's happening, because of course, this creates issues for energy production, as you can see, because we've had to cancel our oil from Russia, which we should be producing it here, which leads me to one of the leading electric car makers, Elon Musk, who said, hate to say it, but we need to increase oil and gas output immediately. Extraordinary times demand extraordinary measures. Well, we took extraordinary measures during the pandemic, and you can see the effects here as we see on this pollution heat map. But he is basically saying that we are going to be in huge trouble. If gas prices are expensive right now, just wait a week, 2 weeks from now when we run out of Russian oil and things are really going to get ugly. Now, I wanted to come over here to this Fox News story. Former Keystone Pipeline worker says U.S. energy crisis is result of Biden's policies. Of course it is. You know, people kept saying, well, it's not Biden who's affecting oil. Absolutely. He could restore the Keystone Pipeline. He could restore oil productions. He could restore drilling permits. He could do all of this stuff, but he's probably not going to because, of course, the Greta Thunbergs, the climate control militants, and the squad, of course, are going to be very upset, which is interesting because Ilhan Omar got upset about him going and meeting with Saudi Arabia, which I thought was kind of funny. So I hope it's still set here. Now, I'm not wearing my headset, but I did want to lock this in and let you guys hear some of the things that the media was saying.
It's acceptable to cut deals in some cases with countries that may have engaged in unsavory actions in the past.
But is it really worth doing business with a despot like Nicolas Maduro to drive down gas prices?
And you guys think that asking Saudi Arabia or Venezuela or Iran is reducing our dependence on foreign oil?
We hate.
Now, they always like to go after Peter Doocy because he asked the hard questions. He's one of the few that probably does. And as you can see there, they were all maskless inside the briefing room. But nonetheless, guys, this was a very interesting turn of events. This was kind of something we probably could have anticipated, that Biden was going to have to make a choice when it came to whether he was going to continue getting oil from Russia or not, when, of course, he could be getting oil here. But he's more content to go to Venezuela and Saudi Arabia, who isn't taking any of his calls, when he could be doing or getting oil right here in the United States. And that's what I have for you guys today on this Wednesday, February the 9th. If you haven't already, guys, be sure to click that like button. And, of course, if you're watching this on Rumble, Odyssey, and BitChute, I want to thank all of you guys for your continued support and the follows there. And appearing right there on the screen, that would be the channel icon to subscribe. And, of course, you can click on that to do that, subscribe, as well as notifications. That way you guys will know when there's content here on the channel. And I will see you guys in the next video.